is Cairo News at 5 with Susan Hutchison, Steve Rabel, Harry Wappler with weather, and Tony Ventrella on sports.
Santa and his elves are busy preparing to slip some of those presents under the tree.
So too are the people who will be answering questions about some of those presents, as Cairo's Brian Wood shows us from Redmond.
Nintendo Gameplay, this is Alan speaking. How may I help you today?
Alan Belardinelli is just warming up for the Christmas rush, the time when Nintendo's game counselors, more than 200 strong, are swamped with calls for help from hundreds of thousands of new game owners.
On the Legend of Zelda, A Link to the Past.
Okay, for the Super NES?
Right.
Okay.
Belardinelli says most callers want to know the secret pathways in the games.
I imagine I'll be hearing the words Diddy and Dixie a lot on Tuesday morning. It's Donkey Kong Country 2 is the biggest game of the season. This is an example of something that is hidden in the game, where you'll maximize your score on the entire game if you go through and find everything.
On an average week, these Nintendo specialists handle about 100 to 120,000 calls every week. But that number doubles in the week after Christmas.
And that game is very good for children.
Since opening the call center here in Redmond 10 years ago, about 50 million calls have come in. But for the counselors, how much of this is work and how much of this is play?
For me, it's just so hard to tell anymore. I really love the games. I like what I do a lot, and so I guess the work side is just really trying to ask the right questions to the people that call in.
Yeah, I'm playing Breath of Fire 2, and I'm looking for the...
Brian Wood, Cairo News, Redmond.
And here's the number. If Santa's Nintendo gift leaves you stumped, there it is. It's a 900 number, 1-900-288-0707. And you know when it starts with 900, it costs you 95 cents per minute.
Went up to the snow yesterday to do a little sledding, and we decided to...
This is Cairo News at 6 with David Curley, Susan Hutchison, and Monty Webb with weather.
1998.
Well, Santa will be delivering a lot of video games this Christmas, and at Nintendo, they are getting ready already. Game counselors are preparing to answer 200,000 or more calls in the days after Christmas. These men and women talk players through the tricky parts of the games and help them find secret pathways. This year promises to be especially busy because of the new game Nintendo has just released.
I imagine I'll be hearing the words Diddy and Dixie a lot on Tuesday morning. It's Donkey Kong Country 2 is the biggest game of the season.
Nintendo will have between 80 and 100 game counselors on the job at any given moment in the 15 hours a day after Christmas. If Santa's Nintendo gift leaves you a little bit stumped, the helpline is 1-900-288-0707. It'll cost you 95 cents a minute, so ask your questions very quickly.
Harry Wappler, I was thinking about you today, doing some last-minute shopping. It's a lot.
This is Cairo News at 10 with Steve Rabel, Margaret Larson, Harry Wappler with weather, and Tony Ventrella on sports.
Sorry. Chances are you are busy buying presents and wrapping presents.
But some people are getting ready to answer questions about presents. The question will be pouring into Nintendo headquarters in Redmond, and Cairo's Brian Wood takes you inside.
Nintendo Gameplay, this is Alan speaking. How may I help you today?
Alan Belardinelli is just warming up for the Christmas rush, the time when Nintendo's game counselors, more than 200 strong, are swamped with calls for help from hundreds of thousands of new game owners.
On the Legend of Zelda, A Link to the Past.
Okay, for the Super NES?
Right.
Okay.
Belardinelli says most callers want to know the secret pathways in the games.
I imagine I'll be hearing the words Diddy and Dixie a lot on Tuesday morning. It's Donkey Kong Country 2 is the biggest game of the season. This is an example of something that is hidden in the game, where you'll maximize your score on the entire game if you go through and find everything.
On an average week, these Nintendo specialists handle about 100 to 120,000 calls every week. But that number doubles in the week after Christmas.
And that game is very good for children.
Since opening the call center here in Redmond 10 years ago, about 50 million calls have come in. But for the counselors, how much of this is work and how much of this is play?
For me, it's just so hard to tell anymore. I really love the games. I like what I do a lot, and so I guess the work side is just really trying to ask the right questions to the people that call in.
Yeah, I'm playing Breath of Fire 2, and I'm looking for the...
Brian Wood, Cairo News, Redmond.
So here's the number. If Santa's Nintendo gift leaves you stumped, 1-900-288-0707. The advice is not free. It costs 95 cents a minute.
Talk fast. What kind of a Christmas bonus did you get at work? Big, little, none? Well, wait till you...
This is Cairo News at Noon with Joyce Taylor, David Curley, and Andy Wappler weather.
Many of the gifts received this Christmas are a little bit complicated. They require some figuring out. At Nintendo headquarters in Redmond, we found that help is just a phone call away. Cairo's Chris Lagares is there now with a live report for us. Chris?
Bob, I'll tell you, I look around the Nintendo parking lot and I see a lot of empty spaces. It isn't that crowded here. It's a corporate holiday for most, but we did find one building where there's plenty of life.
If you like Mortal Kombat 3, you'll really like Killer Instinct. And that's what we're going to make a set of stairs up here, and that'll lead you to Mamu the Frog. It gives you the frog.
The day after Christmas, the phones are ringing at Nintendo's Redmond headquarters.
Do you have a pencil and paper?
They are Nintendo customers calling in, trying to figure out the electronic games they purchased or the games that Santa delivered under the tree.
Like Donkey Kong Country 2, they're stuck in the game somewhere, they need help, or like Super Mario World 2 or a Zelda game, you know, and they need to find an item or defeat a boss, and so they give us a call.
More than 200 Nintendo employees are here answering the calls. Gameplay counselors, unraveling the mysteries of more than 1,700 Nintendo games.
Well, the gray one goes into, there's one that says AC. Yeah. You only have one cord?
Nintendo Gameplay, this is Megan. How may I help you?
Plenty of call for it.
The calls are coming in from all over the United States and Canada. Staffers are ready to answer those calls in English, in French, and in Spanish. I asked one of the gameplay counselors how many calls you get a day during one of these busy times. Between 110 and 150 calls. Bobby?
Wow. Okay, well, I guess it comes in handy. Some of those Nintendo games can be a little bit complicated, Chris. Thanks a lot for your report.
Well, the partial shutdown of the government.
Number one at noon. You're watching King 5 News. Coverage you can count on. With all the news for Western Washington and First Alert weather. And now, King 5 News at noon.
Well, if you aren't spending the day exchanging your gifts, then you might be trying them out. King 5's Robert Mack is live in Redmond, where one customer service department knows all about the day after Christmas. Robert.
Bob, we are here at Nintendo headquarters, and it's the same story here every December 26th. All across the world, people get their presents, and then they call for help.
The agents and killing those civilians.
Okay, now hurting the civilians isn't going to be a good idea.
Alan Bellardinelli started at 7 this morning. Most of his callers just unwrapped new video games, and they're stuck.
If you've taken any of the contaminated weapons or anything like that out of the area, you're not going to be able to evacuate.
For the first year, Nintendo is charging 95 cents a minute to talk to a gameplay counselor. Otherwise, you can call an automated tip line. The company expects to get about 250,000 calls this week. Everything from how do you plug this thing into your TV to how do you find the secret hidden bonus levels in the new game Diddy's Conquest. Bellardinelli offers this advice.
Learn to do a roll jump with Diddy Kong and learn to use the team-up mode where you get on Dixie Kong's shoulders. On aimerait enregistrer l'appel.
And he also gives that advice in French. He learned the language since junior high school in Bellevue, and he's one of many bilingual counselors.
Donc, vous avez déjà parlé avec Ray, n'est-ce pas?
Villarnelli says he gets calls from different countries and a lot of different age groups.
Well, you get a lot of like fathers and mothers calling up saying, yeah, my son is playing this game, and then they start telling you about this game, and they can explain in incredible detail every stage, the exact place they're having trouble.
Villarnelli says his callers range in age from small kids to an 83-year-old great-grandmother who he talked to, and she had a problem with a video game. Very simple question. I'm Robert Mack reporting live in Redmond.
Robert, is there a long wait to speak with an operator in English?
Let me check the board here right now. They do have a very short wait, just a few seconds, and there are gameplay counselors available right away.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Robert Mack, live in Redmond. Today, the Hollywood community is mourning singer and actor.
This is Cairo News at 5 with Susan Hutchison, Steve Rabel, Harry Wappler with weather, and Tony Ventrella on sports.
A different kind of crush in Redmond at this hour. Hundreds of consumers are calling Nintendo to get help with the new games they got for Christmas. Cairo's Chris Lagueros has that story.
Have you tried Primal Rage or Killer Instinct? You should definitely try one of those too.
Call Nintendo after Christmas and listen to a different language.
He has a flashing heart next to his head sometimes, and his head will pop out of the 4 holes in the walls.
And that's what we're going to make a set of stairs appear, and that'll lead you to Mamu the Frog, who gives you the frog sound.
Nintendo is known for its flashy electronic games. Megan Evans is here to make sure consumers know how to enjoy them.
A lot of them got Nintendo systems for Christmas, and then we're helping them hook them up to their TV sets.
You said there's one cord coming out of the back?
And it did not have a controller in there. And Montgomery Ward told me that they can't do nothing about it for me to call y'all.
And then they're calling back after they start playing their games when they get stuck, and we help them get unstuck in their games.
I threw my spear across the pit.
Okay.
And it says, you need a heavier spear. Okay. Where do I get that?
And on the ice castle,
Okay.
we can't beat those 3 ghosts at the end.
More than 200 gameplay counselors are here to provide the answers.
After using the Stop Magic, the ghost will be vulnerable to your normal weapons.
In English, Spanish, or maybe French.
Je sais pas, j'ai pas des informations dessus en fait.
Vous l'avez pas encore?
Non.
With more than 1,700 Nintendo games, the counselors rely on computers to help them keep customers on course.
After defeating Vigor in the Coliseum, you need to exit the town of Noblia and head south through the Great Desert.
It's kind of like reading an electronic roadmap.
Are you having a problem passing those guys shooting the bombs? Yeah. Okay.
And taking a confused traveler by the hand to point them in the right direction.
Stay at the middle platform and then punch the bombs as they fall and you should be able to pass it okay. Okay.
Chris Lagueros, Cairo News, Redmond.
Were you taking notes? I was. A single gameplay counselor can take as many as 150 calls at Nintendo the day after Christmas. Those calls come in from all over the United States and Canada.
Well, no doubt many of those shoppers are charging their
You're watching Como TV4 in Seattle. Now, Como News 4.
All the holiday hustle and bustle hopefully behind you, and if you're relaxing, you obviously do not work at Nintendo.
Perfect sound, okay, but no pictures like really cruddy. Right, and Wheel of Fortune.
Et d'obtenir le deuxième œil de diamant.
It's kind of cumbersome because you fight enemies along the way, but it's a really good area.
Help, help, I can't find the doohickeys in the Donkey Kong Country. That's just one of the pleas answered this week by Nintendo game experts. Telling the truth there, during Crunch Week, which is the week after Christmas, 270 Nintendo employees will take more than 200,000 questions from all over the world. If you need help beating the boss in level 6 or other gameplay assistance, here's the number to call for a counselor. It's 1-900-288-0707. Beware, it's 95 cents per minute, and if you just can't figure out how to set your game up, you can call a free consumer hotline, and that number is 1-800-255-3700. So much for the doohickeys in the Donkey Kong.
But it would be a fun job because they obviously have to know a lot about the game, so they have to play the games a lot. Still ahead, it was a 1 in a million shot.
Up next in
Number 1 at 5. You're watching King 5 News. Coverage you can count on. With all the news for Western Washington, today's top story, and First Alert weather. And now, King 5 News at 5.
Many of us think of the day after Christmas as a day to exchange gifts and a mad rush at any store. It is the busiest day of the year for one company in Redmond, but it's not because people are returning merchandise. It's because they're using the merchandise at home. King 5's Robert Mack is live at Nintendo to explain. Robert.
That's right, we're at Nintendo headquarters, and what these people here are doing is talking with people across the world. It looks as if we've got a question here about how to hook up the Nintendo system, and back here we had a question on Killer Instinct. It's like this every December 26th, and people just pick up the phone and want some advice right away. Just about now, people who got Nintendo games for Christmas are getting stuck.
I've tried killing all the agents and killing all civilians.
Customers can call an automated tip line, or thousands choose to call here and actually talk with one of a couple hundred gameplay counselors. For the first time, Nintendo is charging 95 cents a minute, but offers to talk you through your video game crisis.
And Nina Fly. No, okay, so you need to cure her amnesia still. Yeah.
When Alan Bellardinelli was a junior high school student in Bellevue, he liked two things: French class and playing video games. He turned his game-playing expertise into a career.
If you've taken any of the contaminated weapons or anything like that out of the area, you're not going to be able to evacuate.
And believe it or not, those French classes came in handy.
Le conseil des juges, je m'appelle Alan, comment puis-je vous aider?
Bellardinelli is one of 20 bilingual game counselors.
Donc, vous avez déjà parlé avec Ray, n'est-ce pas?
The callers may be from different countries, but they all seem to speak a common language. They all talk about secret levels, hidden bonus rooms, and this year's new vocabulary that comes with Diddy's Conquest. Bellardinelli offers this universal advice.
Learn to do a roll jump with Diddy Kong. That would be my advice. Learn to do a roll jump with Diddy Kong and learn to use the team-up mode where you get on Dixie Kong's shoulders.
By the end of the week, Nintendo expects to answer about 250,000 calls, and don't think it's mostly children calling.
Well, you get a lot of like fathers and mothers calling up saying, yeah, my son is playing this game, and then they start telling you about this game, and they can explain in incredible detail every stage, the exact place they're having trouble.
Bellardinelli says every year he talks with youngsters who are just learning to form words. And on the other end of the spectrum, he says he talked with an 83-year-old great-grandmother who was having some problems with a fantasy game. So it is a unique language, but it is understood by all ages. I'm Robert Mack reporting live in Redmond.
Robert, for all those parents who are secretly playing after Johnny goes to bed, how late are the phone lines open?
Lisa, you have until 9 o'clock tonight, and Dennis, you can start calling at 6 a.m. tomorrow morning.
Okay.
I'll be working on that roll.
Thanks, Robert. Robert Mack, live at Nintendo in Redmond.
And now that Christmas is over, it's time to start thinking about how to get